And we are still waiting for answers to the questions posed in that story. The most important one is when government will fulfill that promise, because it's been about a year since these persons with disability were taking off the toll booths after that announcement by the finance minister. Well, today there is a disability career fair, and it's by the Standard Chartered Bank, Ghana PLC and Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations in collaboration with Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the British Council, Altruistic Foundation, Promoting Equal Rights for Women and Girls with Disability in Ghana, United Nations Ghana, and other partner institutions. And this is a career fair for persons with disability. And so we'll be taking you to the event ground when that program starts. We'll take a quick breather now and continue with the show. This is Joy News, your most credible news source. We now take you live for that Disability Career Fair 2022 being organized by Standard Chartered Bank Ghana PLC, the Ghana Federation of Disability Organization and other partners.
We want to begin by first saying our apologies for the late start of the event. But we hope that with whatever time we have left from now till the fair is over, we would have a wonderful time here and would meet all the objectives for which this fair has been organized. So we sincerely apologize for the late start. You are welcome to the 2022 Disability Career Fair. From all the partners, Standard Chartered Bank, Ghana Federation for Disabled Organization, the Altruistic Foundation, Limitless, Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana, Multimedia Group, who are our media sponsors, and then also FCDO, Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the British Council, who are hosting us. We just want to say we are pleased to have all of you here, distinguished persons with disability who have come to meet employers, and then employers who have come to speak to persons with disability. Thank you. We would begin the program now, but I wanted to state that we are live on Joy News channel and streaming on Facebook and YouTube at Joy News on TV. We are live on the Joy News channel and streaming on Facebook and YouTube at Joy News on TV. We would want to begin with a welcome address, just to put the entire program into context. And so with a round of applause, we want to invite Mr. Jose Goji, the Head of Corporate, Commercial and Institution Banking for Standard Chartered Bank. Can you please give a round of applause?
Thank you, Jerry. The Country Director of the British Council, our host for this morning, the representative from Ministry of Gender and Social Protection, the Development Director for the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office in Ghana, other fellow sponsors, and colleagues from Standard Chartered Bank, especially the executive committee members. Our head of HR is here, the treasurer is there as well, head of audit and the finance director are all there. So very good representation from Standard Chartered Bank. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again, and welcome to the Career Fair for Persons with Disability. This event is organized by Standard Chartered Bank, Ghana PLC, and the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations in collaboration with the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the British Council, Altruistic Foundation, the Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana, Promoting Equal Rights for Women and Girls with Disabilities in Ghana, PED, United Nations Ghana, Limitless, Multimedia Group, and other partner institutions. Standard Chartered Bank believes that our continuous assistance is linked to building sustainable and inclusive communities. We have actively employed persons with disabilities and make sure we have at least one person with disability join our national service cohorts annually. As an organization, we are passionate about this fair because we know the benefit it affords both employers present and potential employees beyond ticking an inclusion box. As partners and employers, we need to be passionate about driving inclusion in every sphere of the organization, and recruitment is one way of doing this. I urge everyone to fully participate in today's event. For the persons with disability present, I urge you to put your best foot forward and exude confidence in your interactions. To the employers present, there are hidden gems in the candidates invited. Comb through and find a few candidates that fit open roles in your organizations, or alternatively for internships or mentorships. Nevertheless, do not leave this place without a list for further engagement. Once again, I welcome you all and wish us the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jose, for the welcome. Now that we have all been welcomed, we would proceed with some more speeches. And so would want to call on Beth Cadman, who is the Development Director for the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office in Ghana, to give a speech on behalf of the British High Commissioner. Thank you.
Good morning. Also, I'd like to start with a huge thank you to British Council for hosting this really, really important event today. And please permit me permission to stand on all existing protocols. It's a real pleasure to be here today talking at this annual career fair. As you may know, the UK government has a strong focus on disability inclusion. In FCDO, our aim is to ensure that disability is mainstreamed across all aspects of our work, and making sure that people with disabilities are systematically and consistently included in everything that we do. The FCDO has recently launched its Disability Inclusion and Rights Strategy 2022 to 2030. This sets out the UK's approach for its work with people with disabilities all around the world. The strategy builds on our strong legacy on disability rights and emphasises the greater voice, choice and visibility are important for the full rights and freedoms of people with disabilities. The strategic vision of the UK is to create a sustainable, inclusive and equitable future where people with disabilities in all their diversity, including marginalised and underrepresented groups, are meaningfully engaged, empowered and able to exercise and enjoy their full rights and freedoms on an equal basis to others without discrimination and across the life course. And importantly, they are full, active members of society, decision makers in all aspects of life, including diplomatic and development fields. This reaffirms the UK's commitment to act as a global leader on disability inclusion. This year's Global Disability Summit, which was co-hosted by the Government of Norway and the Government of Ghana, saw the UK and many others committing to continue to drive forward the implementation on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Crises are disproportionately affecting marginalised people, especially women and girls, and people with disabilities, trapping them in cycles of poverty and vulnerability. As one of the most excluded groups in society, people with disabilities are more likely to be impacted by these shocks and experience abuse, exploitation, and deprivation as a result. And this demonstrates another clear link with the global campaign of 16 Days of Activism launched by the Honourable Minister-Designate for Gender last Friday. COVID-19 has had a devastating and disproportionate effect on the billion people with disabilities and has reversed many hard-won gains. Among the hardest hit in terms of infections, severe complication and fatalities, people with disabilities and the elderly have been adversely impacted in all areas of life and excluded from response and recovery efforts. The crisis has exposed and exacerbated pre-existing inequalities, exclusion, stigma, discrimination, marginalisation and violence. Women and girls with disabilities, elderly, underrepresented groups, including people with intellectual disabilities, have been among the worst affected. The increased barriers to inclusion have reduced the independence, autonomy and dignity of this sector of society. Even before the pandemic, those with disabilities and their families were poorer across all socio-economic groups. COVID-19 has reversed years of education gains for children with disabilities. With schools closing, children with disabilities were less likely to benefit from remote learning. Many education systems failed to meet even their basic educational needs. And they're now at a greater risk of never being able to return to school. People with disabilities are already poorly represented in the job market, with a large majority unemployed, stuck in underpaid or insecure roles. Only 20% of women with disabilities are in employment, and their paid and unpaid contributions to their families, communities and economies are frequently unrecognised, especially older women. Given the opportunity, people with disabilities can contribute an average of an extra 5% to GDP. Impressive statistics if people have the opportunity and chance to make the most of themselves. People with disabilities have experienced high loss of employment and income, financial hardship, reversing decades of progress on poverty reduction. Their experience has been compounded by weak coverage of social safety nets, systems, and in particular in low and middle income countries where 80% of people with disabilities live. Shockingly, only 8.6 people with severe disabilities in low-income countries even receive any form of social protection. In Ghana, persons with disabilities have lower educational opportunities and achievements, less likely to have jobs, and face significant social discrimination and stigma compared to those without disabilities. There's an estimate that more than 2 million persons with disabilities exist in Ghana. That's a fifth of the population. Around 13% of the population has some form of mental health and psychosocial disability. The prevalence of severe disability is reported highest in Volta region and higher than average in the Upper East and Upper West. And with the UK's renewed focus on Northern Ghana, I have seen personally the importance and the difference that UK programming has made and what the outcomes that it's delivering. I want to include a particular focus on those with mental health conditions as a form of disability. They have a higher risk of experiencing violence, homelessness, and wrongful incarceration. They can become trapped in a cycle of poverty and mental health. This cycle must be broken. The UK's Leave No One Behind programme supports the government and other service providers to scale up delivery of quality and integrated mental health services, particularly at the primary healthcare and community levels, and supporting recovery, community-based rehabilitation and inclusion, to reduce the stigma, discrimination and human rights violation towards full active participation and representation. It also seeks to transform attitudes, behaviours and norms that drive the stigma and discrimination, and removing barriers to participation, decision-making at all levels, and build a Ghana-led disability-inclusive social protection and integration mental health services in primary healthcare and promote community-based rehabilitation at scale. Ghana signed and ratified the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2012. That mandates the protection and promotion of human rights for persons with disabilities. However, non-implementation of the provision in Ghana's policies and legislations has contributed to the present pattern of poverty, exclusion and vulnerability amongst this sector. Many persons with disabilities face high degree of unemployment and underemployment, largely due to stigma and discrimination within the market. Despite provisions in the '92 Constitution granting equal rights of participation to every citizen amongst persons with disability in politics, governance, civil society groups outside the disability movement, this is low. In Ghana, the British High Commission ambition and commitments on disability inclusion are enshrined in our inclusion strategy. These are further underpinned by our inclusion core values of honesty, integrity, respect and openness. Aside programming, the UK government is committed to equipping staff and our delivery partners with the skills, tools and knowledge on disability inclusion, as well as working in partnership with our staff with disabilities to embed their inclusion within our internal culture and leadership. We will build on our status as a disability confident leader, prioritising, attracting, recruiting and developing staff with disabilities and long-term conditions at all levels. Having successfully implemented a disability internship scheme in collaboration with GFD, we're looking to incorporate now those lessons into our long-term disability inclusive recruitment strategy. As the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights once found, the benefits of Ghana's economic growth so far have overwhelmingly been the wealthy. Inequalities rising, and the poor and marginalised, including disabled, risk being left behind. So Ghana's ambition for self-reliance must be broad. It must be inclusive. It must address the self-reliance of the most marginalised Ghanaians, because unless every citizen reaches their full potential, all nations, including Ghana, never will. That means supporting the over 2 million Ghanaians who suffer from some form of disability. We need to work together across our governments, within the private sector, and importantly within society, to address those barriers that prevent economic empowerment, enhance economic and social participation, and promote accessibility and usability so services are available to all. Empowering people with disabilities doesn't just affect individuals. It leads to better decisions, more effective outcomes for communities, for nations, and for the world. For our participants and beneficiaries here today, I really hope this career fair is going to be a great one and a fantastic start in helping you achieve your career and business ambitions and aspirations. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. The statistics you shared the data on persons with disability. I'm hoping that the employers here know the task we have at hand and would ensure that before we leave here today, we better the statistics. Yes. And 3rd of December 2022 is International Day for Persons with Disability. And this event is one of the events that leads to the celebration of that day. One of the key partners for this Disability Career Fair, Ghana Federation for Disabled Organization, would give a speech and would want to call on the national president, Mawunyo Yako Dagba, to give a speech. Can we please give her a round of applause?
Thank you, our moderator. The representative of the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection, who will be giving us our keynote address, the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bank, the Commissioner, British High Commission, development partners, corporate institutions, invited guests, the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. On behalf of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations and all partners, I welcome you to the 2022 Career Fair for Persons with Disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, since its inception in 2010, the Disability Career Fair has consistently provided an unmatched annual platform to showcase the capabilities of persons with disabilities and to make the case for employment. We are deeply gratified to join hands again with our partners for this year's edition and remain encouraged by the high level of interest of the private sector as well as development partners to drive change in the employment opportunities afforded persons with disabilities. Distinguished dignitaries, significant number of persons with disabilities populate the ranks of the unemployed in our country, which exhibits poverty levels relative to the general population. It is acknowledged that the employment is a high right guaranteed by Article 27 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Disability Act of Ghana. Further, all of us are aware of the impact of employment on any individual's psychological well-being, meaning, and personal sense of self. To be useful, to contribute to some endeavor, this is the part of the full human experience. And to share my own example, in 2006, I had an opportunity to be an intern with the audit service. And in 2008, I landed a permanent role. And throughout the 14 years of working with the audit service, I've risen to become an assistant director of audit. And that gives me a sense of fulfillment and to also encourage my fellow persons with disabilities. Available data shows that unemployed situations of persons with disabilities is occasioned by negative attitudes of some employers towards disability, which usually stems from limited knowledge about the potentials of persons with disabilities. Distinguished guests, let me use this platform to impress upon employers and the general public that the abilities and qualifications of persons with disabilities should not be unduly discounted without fair consideration. I encourage stakeholders, employers, to provide opportunities and, where necessary, take affirmative action to promote jobs for persons with disabilities. We are as capable as the next person in many fields of endeavor. The myths and assumptions about disability weaken our cause and promote discrimination. There were employers here who can attest to positive experiences with employees with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, persons with disabilities do not seek to be given jobs as a form of charity, but on the firm conviction of our capacity and trust in our ability to deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our partners who have come together to make this event a reality. At the section today, there are about 80 unemployed persons with disabilities who have been empowered by partners of the fair for interviews. It is our expectations that over a period of time, all the 80 persons and even more will be fully employed. Prior to concluding, I would like to use this opportunity to appeal to the government of Ghana to consider the proposed employment equity policy submitted by the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations and our partners to facilitate jobs for persons with disabilities in Ghana. I would also like to appeal to our friends from the media to be sensitive to disability issues. It is through you that we can demystify disability and eliminate negative perceptions. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to a productive and successful fair.
Thank you very much, Maonyo. A very moving speech, and you are a testament of what can happen when you give yourself into the society. We hope that by the time we are done with today, a lot more would have stories like Maonyo and a few others who are also here. In her concluding remarks, she spoke to government. And it's important that we have government here for such an occasion as this. And we do. And we have a delegate from the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection who would give us a speech on behalf of the minister. And so would want to welcome Mr. Mauto Ablo, Director, Ghana Productive Safety Net Project at the Ministry, to give us the keynote speech.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Certainly you can see I'm not the minister. I am representing her. She sends her apologies because she's engaged in another national events and therefore could not make it to this place. So she has requested that I participate on her behalf. I'm not new to the disability issues. I've worked with the disability fraternity since 2010. And at the point I served as a member of the council. So I'm here to read the speech on her behalf. If it goes well, the credit is for her. But if I'm not able to, please blame me. So I read the speech. The country director of the British Council, the commissioner, the British High Commission, representatives, that's the development director from the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, the managing director and head of corporate, commercial and institutional banking from the Standard Chartered Bank, the presidents of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, corporate institutions present here, our development partners present, disability organizations, invited guests, the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all other protocol observed. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you this morning and to share with you ideas on the subject of our gathering today, That is the career fair. I thank the organizers for putting together this program at this time when all Ghanaians and persons with disability in particular require opportunities to contribute their quota to national development. It is very important to put in place strategies for sustainable development. Distinguished participants, sustainable development involves the strategic mobilization and deployment of a nation's resources, particularly its human resource. This is evident in international and national frameworks, particularly the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and the Ghana's Medium-Term Development Policy Framework, as they seek to ensure security and inclusion for all. Ghana's population in the working age currently facing challenges in securing sustainable jobs. The situation is even more serious for persons with disability. They face serious challenges which, if not addressed, will result in leaving them behind in national development. This should not be the case. When we are all focused at this point in time on leaving no one behind. Mainstreaming disability in national development, therefore, should be a commitment and focus. The rise of persons with disabilities to employment on an equal basis with others and the role of the state to promote the realization of the right to work are anchored in the United Nations Convention on Persons with Disability under Article 27, which states that state parties recognize the rise of persons with disabilities to work on an equal basis with others, and this also includes the right to the opportunity to gain a living by working freely, unchosen or accepted in the labor market and the work environment that is open, inclusive, and accessible to persons with disabilities. State parties shall safeguard and promote the realization of the rights to work, including for those who acquire disability during employment by taking appropriate steps. The government of Ghana has mainstreamed disability, and this element also add gender, because I'm coming from the Ministry of Gender, as a key component of our national social protection policy. The policy states that disability considerations shall be mainstreamed in all social protection efforts. Necessary provisions shall be considered for disabled persons, children, adults of working age, and older persons in all the social assistance interventions that we have in Ghana. Opportunities for participation of the disabled in productive or livelihood inclusion interventions will be carefully created in consultations with their representative associations and in line with the Ghana Persons with Disability Act, Act 715. A major advocacy initiative will involve existing campaigns and projects to ensure compliance to the relevant provisions of the Persons with Disability Act. Social protection is a key component of our programs, and it's one of the interventions that has contributed or is contributing to sustainable development, especially making provisions for persons who are vulnerable or extremely poor to participate in national development. So many countries are implementing social protection strategies now all over the world, and Ghana inclusive. But we have tried our best to mainstream disability into it. So you can see how passionate government is about the concerns and the needs of persons with disabilities. It is in the light of this that the ministry, through the National Council of Persons with Disabilities, and is in partnership with the Ghana Federation of the Disabled and its member associations, the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, the Office of the Head of Local Government Service, Metropolitan, Municipal and these assemblies, our development partners, civil society organizations, the faith-based organizations, the media and other partners to develop and implement strategies to create sustainable jobs and employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the government of Ghana has taken several steps towards ensuring that this is achieved. Mention can be made of the Youth Employment Program, the NAPCO, the Planting for Food and Jobs, the local government recruitment, among others, where several persons with disabilities have been hired. There are other programs like the Youth Start, which is coming up, and I would want to encourage persons with disabilities to take advantage of the programs and enroll themselves. The Persons with Disability Act is also being revised to conform with the provisions of the United Nations Convention of Persons with Disabilities. You're all aware our act was made or came into being before the UN Convention. And therefore, there are some provisions in the UN Convention which is not reflected in our act. And to domesticate those, we need to revise the act. And we are currently working with the disability community, the GFD, of course, led by National Council of Persons with Disability, to review the act to address some of these issues. And some of the things, including the rights to employment, and is committed to promoting employment opportunities for persons with disability. At the Global Summit, the Disability Global Summit 2022, which was held, and the director just also mentioned it, it was co-hosted by the government of Ghana and then Norway. The commitments that Ghana had made, which also includes providing employment opportunities for persons with disabilities, will be implemented with collaboration and partnership of all the relevant stakeholders. I have been informed this event will focus on grooming, mentoring, and providing opportunities for selected persons with disability to interact with key corporates and human resource professionals to make them employment ready and to build their entrepreneurship skills. In engaging, my suggestion is that the interventions and strategies that we'll be talking about, that we'll be discussing during this career fair, must engage, participate, and interact with each other. At this fair, we should be looking at issues like, one, addressing issues that contribute to the limited job or employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. We need to be considering that. What are the limiting factors? Let's begin to think about that and let's see how we can address them. Sensitization and education on creating equal opportunities for all, including persons with disabilities. Not many people know the potentials of persons with disabilities. Therefore, let us continue to engage, sensitize, and educate people who are not aware to know about the potentials of the persons with disability. Let us also include issues of capacity building for job and employment creation. If you don't build capacities, how can you get people to work? All of us here have gone through capacity building initiatives and we are in various places of work. Even while we are working, we are still, being given opportunities to build our capacities. So why not also consider capacity building as very key to make the persons with disability employable? We also have to talk about issues of partnership building and coalitions to support the initiative that we're talking about here. One person, one organization, one institution cannot do it. It is in partnership that we can do it. And therefore, we think that we should also engage on how do we build sustainable partnerships and how can this partnership translate into creating employment or job opportunity for persons with disability. Let us not also forget resource and fund mobilization. It is very key. We need the resources, we need the funds to enable our brothers and sisters also to have the opportunity to work. So in our discussions and our discourse today, please let us also think about resource mobilization. And then again, the employers are here. What kind of incentives should be provided to enable employers to engage persons with disabilities? Some persons with disability, especially those with physical disabilities, needs some tools and assistive devices to work. Some of us use the excuse of not having the assistive devices and the tools to engage persons with disabilities. So this issue must also engage our attention. How do we make available the tools and assistive devices that will support persons with disability to, get employed or to make them employable? Then again, the partnership does not end there. We should also look at effective and efficient coordination. All that I've just talked about, the key things that I think we should be considering, it needs what? Effective and efficient coordination among all of us, all those of us who are here as key stakeholders, to ensure that the strategies and things that we're going to put in place will be sustainable ones. We need to look at all this, among others, maybe I've not mentioned. Distinguished participants, I am confident and believe our presence here is a clear demonstration for our commitment to the development and implementation of key and practical as well as sustainable interventions to address challenges facing persons with disabilities. I want to urge all of us to contribute our quota to ensure that the objective and the outputs of this engagement we are having today are achieved. I want to respond to my sister Maunyo. She is Maunyo, I am Mauto. The employment equity policy will be duly considered. We'll work in partnership to consider it and see how best it can serve the interests of persons with disability. And on that note, I wish to thank you all and pray that the Almighty God will see us through. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your speech. Can we please give another round of applause? And then also for the commitment to consider the bill that has been tabled to the ministry. So I want to state again that we are live on the Joy News channel and streaming on Facebook and on YouTube at Joy News on TV. We have had 4 speeches. It's time to have a conversation. And so we have a panel discussion coming up. And what the panel discussion is to do is to discuss employee and employer perspectives in hiring persons with disabilities, sharing best practices. Our panelists would include persons of disability who have done very well in their corporate or private lives, as well as employers who have actively done it, and the experiences they would share should motivate us even as we get ready for the conversations in the next sessions. I would want to hand over to the moderator for this session, Benjamin Akakpo, who is a host of the AM show on Joy News. Can we please give him a round of applause as he takes over?
Thank you very much, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here among all of you wonderful people. I would like to quickly acknowledge Mr. Mauto Ablo, Director at the Ministry for Gender, Women and Social Protection, who is representing the Minister. Madam Maunyo Dagba, President of the Ghana Federation of Disability. Beth Cadman, Development Director for the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in Ghana, together with Jose Goji, Managing Director and Head of Corporate, Commercial and Institutional Banking, Client Average. While I was nominated to be here, it's really special to be here because I have a particular affinity for people living with disability. In fact, this morning's session, and I'm going to stick to time, reminds me of 2 colleagues of mine with whom I graduated at the University of Ghana's Law School. They read law. And trust me, if nothing at all, it really opened all our eyes to the fact that disability is not inability. They are pursuing law, further studies in law currently, and that just goes as a testament to the fact that right. So when you came for that fair, Did you feel this would happen, that you would end up working with Standard Chartered?
No.
You didn't?
I had no idea.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, were there any reservations you had? Were there any fears you had in coming for this fair, taking up this position with Standard Chartered? Were there any people who were those party poopers telling you can't do this?
Okay. Personally, there were no fears on my part.
Okay.
The thing is, I was at the hospital when I heard about the fair. I had a surgery to correct polio.
Okay.
So I was at OTC. I wasn't due to be discharged, and a friend called to tell me about the fair. And so I pleaded with the doctors to allow me. And my family were concerned about my health. So they were the ones who resisted initially because they wanted me to get well first before I start the search for job. But somehow I felt this was my time. So I pleaded with the doctor and he allowed me to come on the condition that I'll be coming for review every week. So I accepted the condition and I came for the fair. I knew something good would come out, but I didn't know I'll be employed by Standard Chartered.
I think Standard Chartered deserves a round of applause for that. She didn't even see it coming. So you didn't face much of a resistance as far as taking up this role is concerned?
No, not really.
Okay. What has your experience been like working with Standard Chartered? And the experiences are many. We hear so many things from people living with disabilities, even in employment. What has your experience been like?
It's been fantastic. In fact, I'm proud to be an employee of SCV.
Wow.
I learned so much. So far, this is my, I think, 4th department I've worked with. I started with the customer service department, then I moved to card operations, and then here I am at the lending operations. So the experience has been good. I've been learning from my colleagues, and they've been supporting me as well.
Well, thank you so much, Vivian. I'll hold there and go to Collins. But before I do, it's interesting when we talk about the statistics in Ghana. There are not too many pieces of data available when it comes to so many facets of our society, including the numbers of people living with disability. I heard Beth make mention of some 2 million odd people. But let's use data from just last year in the United States. 43.7% of persons with a disability who were not working reported some type of barrier to employment. Which brings me to my next question to Collins. For you, Collins, what is required to make people living with disabilities feel included at work, not excluded? Share that to us through your personal experience.
Many thanks, and good morning, everyone. And it is an important session, and I believe all of us gathered here should take our pen and paper, jot the important notes, and try to guide us in whatever we do away from here, so that we can also earn or learn an important job. Back to your question. Talking about making a workspace inclusive depends on 3 principles. 1, we talk about the feeling of being welcome. You must create an atmosphere that allows your environment, your workspace, feel welcome to everyone, including persons with disability. If they are welcome, then they must also feel valued whilst they are in, and they must feel safe. So these 3 principles, when implemented in your organization, gives you the culture of inclusiveness, removing the barriers and creating a safe atmosphere for them to put in their best. Now, this only does not stand and give you that barrier-free environment we are talking about. You must, first of all, when you are bringing the person in, give the person a job description or a target letter, as people would prefer to call it. Now, when we speak sometimes of this nature, people think we just make up some of the stories or we just read about them and we speak about. No, that's not the issue. When I began to get job experience, when I got to uni, I said, no, I need to get some experience as far as the working environment is concerned. I decided to do an internship in a particular institution, which I don't want to mention the name. The first 2 days I went, I was just seated there without doing anything. I don't have a target letter, I don't have a job description. I just go, good morning, they talk, they do their discussion, and then 2 days, said, no, this cannot continue. So the third day, I went in with my own laptop, and I said, even if they will not assign me any duty, I will start with some research work on my own. Maybe I can start writing to improve my writing skills. So when I got there with a laptop, then said, really, can you use a laptop? And then the question started coming. It goes on and on. But still, no work was given. After a week, I decided to approach the head of the department and said, look, I know you do ABC. Yes, A is not my area of expertise, but B and C I can do well. So assign me some duties, and let's see how it goes. And that is how they began to have confidence in me. So job description is key to remove barriers from the way of persons with disability and allow them have practical skills or experience at the work they do. Away from that is what I would also call the reasonable adjustment. Now, when you recruit a person with disability, reasonable adjustment is a huge topic. We are not going to go into detail. But when you recruit a person with disability, you need to discuss what tools are available for him to work with, because he's not just coming to sit and look into the skies. No, he's coming to work. So you need to discuss what tools and measures can be adopted to ensure effective and efficient use of the human resource that has been brought in. At this juncture, we don't see the disability, we see the resource embedded in the person. So you need to discuss that. Yes, the organization may have some accessibility arrangement in place, but sometimes it needs to be discussed and a reasonable accommodation requested, granted, and then allow the person to feel safe, welcome, and valued in the space that has been provided for him to work. Away from here, I would also touch on the environment. The physical environment, or the physical access is key. If I'm not going to work remotely and I'm going to come to the office every day, then the question is, how is the office space structured? Do I have a pathway that I can use my wheelchair to go through easily? As a person with visual impairment, is the floor slippery enough that can make me fall? If it is so, then it's not healthy for me to be there. You need to do work on that. So the physical environment is key. Information access is also another. As a person with hearing impairment, in your organization, in the organization that I've been asked to join, what do I do? When you speak, how do I get to hear? So this is also needed to ensure that the barriers are taken off to enable me put in my best for the growth of the organization. And finally, I'll talk on support structures. So as we recruit persons with disabilities, we would also have to bear in mind there need to be support structures in place. How do we manage a person with disability to get the best out of them? Now, this is where I will say that issues of disability has gone beyond HR issues. Gone were the days where we sum all of them together, and even L&D. But I think in the past few years, L&D has been separated from HR, and that is the way inclusion or disability inclusion must also go. We need to have disability advisors at our various offices that help us guide and craft guidelines to support things we would want to do to ensure that we get effective use of these individuals as they join our organization, and to ensure that they have the safest atmosphere to put out their best. I would want to pause here, if not, I would take the whole time. Thank you very much.
Let's put our hands together for Collins. So beautiful submissions so far, and you've given us, I am sure, a lot of food for thought. Those 3 points he made, do you welcome them? And if you go somewhere and you don't feel welcome, you will know. It's very easy to see it. Do you feel valued? Do we make them feel valued? Do we make them feel safe? When he spoke about the work environment, slippery floors, it's not disability friendly, they do not have those slopes they can use to, for their wheelchairs and all of that. It means your workplace is not disability friendly. There are some other questions I'll come back to you on, but let me come now to Joshua. Now, Joshua is with the National Council on Persons with Disabilities. They do quite a lot to aid people living with disabilities. The first thing I would like to find out from you, Joshua, is what you're doing so far to support people living with disability in terms of integrating them into society?
Thank you very much. Good morning. When you talk of the National Council on Persons with Disability, certainly I am going to start with law. When our moderator took the platform and he said he graduated with some people from the law school, I said yes. That means we are going to talk about laws here. Let's refer back to the Persons with Disability Act, Section 42, which allow National Council on Persons with Disability to propose and evolve policies that mainstream persons with disability into national development. That is the key one that I want to take from the Section 42. And out of this, we say that, one, we work on policies, we work on legislations, and then we work on strategies. So we adopt all these three things to make sure persons with disability are enrolled or are mainstream in national development. An example of some of the laws or policies that we can talk about is the Persons with Disability Act, which is currently reenacted and now a Persons with Disability Bill 2022. So it's now a bill and it is still going through the process. We also have the National Development Medium-Term Plan, which is a national tool, and all the focus areas and dimensions we have disability fence across. We also want to zoom into some policies which include the inclusive education policy. Why am I mentioning? We are talking about employment and I mentioned education. You see, employment comes with education. When you talk of education, not only formal education, we are talking about when you go to the other aspects of the Ministry of Education, we have the TVET, which deals with skills training. So we have education in it. So the inclusive education policy also have a part of it that takes care of persons with disability, not only to work, but then to develop themselves for work that will be given to them. Then the almighty popular common fund for persons with disability, currently the 3%, which is also a guideline that gives persons with disability, that guides some of the activities to mainstream persons with disability. Then we also have, I am sure most of us may not be aware of this, but then we have the risk management disaster for persons with disability. So in this case, we're looking at a policy or a guideline that takes care of persons with disability not only at the workplace, but then you also need safety at home. You need a safe condition which will give you a healthy mind to work. So before, during, and after risk, there should be some interventions. So these are some of the interventions, and I want to mention on and on and on. We are not going to finish now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. But as a follow-up, I'd like to find out then what the cost implications are and the benefits to businesses which take on people living with disabilities. What are the cost implications? And for those businesses, many of them are here, who take on people living with disabilities, what do they stand to gain?
Okay, so let me start from the nation at large. When you talk of cost benefit, then that means if we are talking about nationally, then we are losing 7% to our GDP growth. What do I mean by that? When persons with disability are not being employed, or when they lose their job, according to ILO, International Labour Organization, you are losing 7% to your GDP growth. Then organizations, let me say that when you lose or when you don't employ persons with disability, which means you don't want to achieve twice or more of your targets. What do I mean by that? Research makes us understand that persons with disability are more focused when they are given tasks. So giving them the reasonable accommodation, as we are talking about, Collins mentioned earlier on, and giving them the necessary tools, and then you give them tasks, you see that you have twice or more of what you want to achieve. Then the benefits. The Persons with Disability Act has made it clear that when you employ persons with disability, you have a tax relief. So if you are an organization who you are refusing to employ persons with disability, then that means you are losing that part. We also have the tax exemption, whereby organizations or employers who bring things that will assist persons with disability, let's say assistive devices, into the country are being gotten. So these are some of the benefits that goes a long way to affect your work. So if you want to benefit or you want to have a cost, I'm sure when you look at these two things, you will have more, and then you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I move on to my next question, and especially because of the perception a lot of the time, at least we have some figureheads we can look forward to. How many of you here know Ivor Kobina Greenstreet? The politician. Yeah, along the line, something happened, but he's been putting himself up to be president of our land. Would that someday he became president? I'm sure more of these issues would be addressed. How many of you know Stephen Hawking? World-famous physicist. He has transformed our thinking when it comes to physics, science, astrology, astronomy, and all of that. Yet he is handicapped in many ways, in a way living with disability. But like I said, disability is not what? Inability. Let me come to Akosua now, and it's important because the role you play is crucial. So for you, what can organizations do to become more inclusive in terms of persons living with disability? What can organizations do?
Hello, can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to commend Stanchart for this opportunity. When I heard that apparently it's been going on for over 10 years, I was amazed. So thank you. What can organizations do? Collins have already said a lot and around that. Okay, so we have a lot of organizations here. I mean, we've been talking about the UN Convention for Persons with Disabilities, and I'm asking myself, how familiar are we with this convention, the organizations here? I think, first of all, organizations need to build their knowledge, look at this convention and what it says. Ghana is a signatory to it, and see how they can contribute their quota to helping governments, and the recognizable organizations that are working in these areas cannot do it alone. And I think organizations need to be intentional, deliberate about their policies. For those who have the policies, we will encourage them, I would say, continue to win it, implementing it. But for those who do not have it, organizations need to go back and review these policies, some of which Collins mentioned them. And also one that Mr. Mauto committed to do. Organization can take up that challenge as well and review their policies. And when I say they should be intentional, for example, in the FCDO, the British High Commission, we have been very deliberate about recruitments. So for example, all persons with disabilities, when they apply for jobs, they are guaranteed interview, provided they meet the minimum safety criteria. You know, we have worked with GFD, NCPD, and other institutions such as Legon. And when we put out our adverts, internship adverts or recruitment adverts, specifically with internship adverts, we liaise with these organizations, institutions, to ensure that the notices, the adverts get to persons with disabilities, and they are given the opportunity to apply, and they are guaranteed interview, as I said, once they meet the minimum sifting criteria. We also, in working in doing that recruitment processes and in engaging PWDs, some of the things we did, it was mentioned about facilities, how they are accessible to PWDs. We worked with GFD again and I think it was NCPD that came to assess our building, our facilities, to give us the confidence to establish that they were conducive for persons with disabilities. And so these are just but a few things that organizations need to do, in my view, to make sure that they're really not just engaging, but also helping to develop these individuals that form or part of the workforce bits that we do. That would be my initial.
Right. I know for certain that a lot of employers often think, oh, if you want to bring in a person living with disability, there's a whole lot that you have to do, and that sometimes becomes an impediment. What are the adjustments that such companies have to, bring to bear? Are there so many of them? What are the policy changes that they have to bring to bear? Educate us on that.
Right. I think that with the policy changes, we have, like I said, the convention to fall back on. There's so much being said about the campaign for Agenda 2030. I call it Agenda 2030 or Vision 2030, where we are all hoping for a world that is inclusive. And so those can be the background or the areas that organizations can pick up and build on. I mean, lots of work is being done on leaving no one behind. We can build on that effort and ensure that, some of the things that we did, for example, there's this document or plan called the Workplace Personnel Emergency Evacuation Plan, for example. When you engage these individuals, how are they involved in everything that happens in the building? If there was an emergency, how are they assisted to be part of the evacuation process, to save themselves? How are you orientating your staff to understand and know how they work with these persons with disabilities? Experience has shown that they don't want to be pitied. They want to be seen as able people who can really deliver just as everyone else. And so rather than thinking you're doing them a favor and pitying them, and how have you oriented your staff to be able to know how to work with these persons? These are some of the things that you need to focus on.
And I think
and the adjustments, back to the adjustments. Right. Some organizations are so well established that adjustments are just minor. Some too have a lot to do. And like I said, it all starts from the policies that you put in place. Those would then help you to identify the adjustments that you would need. For example, for us in FCDO, in the High Commission, some of the adjustments we had to do was to provide software reader for our visually impaired staff, for example, ensure that the access to the building and the PEEP thing I mentioned, personal, so some, it's not overly, I haven't done any research to be able to place a finger or amount on exactly how much it will cost you, but I know that a lot of organizations are already in a good place to be able to make just minor adjustments to engage persons with disabilities.
Right, and on that initial point you were making, I believe it was reflected in the words of Collins and Joshua, as they spoke about, basically, they don't want to be handed fish. Teach them how to fish. Teach them the ropes, and they will do it themselves. You don't have to do it for us, else why are we here? Collins and Joshua, did I reflect you correctly? Exactly. Okay. I just wanted to be sure I was on the safe side. So, having said all you have, what then will it take to, is it easy to employ a person living with disability? What would be your assessment, briefly? So I go back to Vivian.
It is. If you look at it, if you mainstream, I mean, if like I said, I mentioned deliberate. If the organizations are deliberate about this, I'm not sure why there should be any difficulty. If you look at it at them, PWDs, as part of the general recruits that you need to engage, there shouldn't be any difficulty, to be honest.
Let me come back to you, Collins, for the next batch of questions. With your experience as an inclusion manager, what steps can employers who are here take to make the hiring process more accessible, more easy for people living with disability?
Thank you, Benjamin. And I must also say that I'm a product of the FCDO initiative of giving opportunity to persons with disabilities to work with them, and I really appreciated the time I spent with them. Please, am I audible now? Okay. Oh, some people can hear me. Okay. I think it's okay now. Yes, and
I hear you must take the microphone a little closer to your... Yes.
And I must appreciate the time I spent with them. And, you know, to tell organizations that to readjust and provide for persons with disability usually does not cost much. And like Akos just mentioned, research has shown that about 60% are not even reflected in monetary terms. So it's just 40% we're talking about. And if you want to grow to that reputable organization that meets the international standard, of course, you can't dodge this. Unless, excuse my words, you want to be known as that, okay, you know it already. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, back to the question. Recruitment, hiring processes accessible. Yes, it is important we make sure that our recruitment processes are accessible and hence does not remain at the design stage. So some people draft the ad very well with designs that makes it difficult for screen readers, for persons with visual impairment to pick up or to read. And in some instances, for persons who suffer from dyslexia are not able to read. So right from the development stage where we develop the ad, there are deficiencies over there. We can look at that later. Also, some of them also go to the extent of sharing it on their website, which is good, but how accessible is your website? Digital accessibility, we'll get there. I can't go into all, so I'm just mentioning some of the topical things that we would have to look at. And then maybe later, if you want us to go into detail, why not? We are available, GFD is also available, and we can go into the details. So yes, website must also be accessible where you post the information. And unfortunately, some organizations, although yes, have advertised nicely in newspapers, you can't find these job ads on their website. And if you attempt to go to the website of the newspaper, you can't also find the ad. It's only in the paper. So how then do I have access as a person with visual impairment who does not read print? So we need to diversify the access. In addition, we also must identify various streams that we can run our recruitment ads, not only on websites, not only on newspapers, but we can look at Facebook or maybe WhatsApp. I think it is the most preferred social media used by persons with disabilities. So we can share it. And like Akos mentioned, you can also partner with various institutions, the GFD and other institutions, to share your job ads so that it can trickle down to those at the grassroots level. Of course, they know their people, so they can easily get it reached to their members, and as well, and the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. So having diversified your recruitment ad, the next thing you would also want to look at is how do you position yourself to interview these individuals? Skills would be required. Yes, they also go through the same interview, right? But you need to know, as your colleague or the person with deaf and hard of hearing sits before you, how do you interview him? Do you want to bring in the interpreter, or you want to adopt the chat-based interviews? So you would also want to look at how or what else will I do to improve my interviewing skills as far as persons with disabilities are concerned to meet their needs. So yes, it goes on and on and on. And I must add that in Ghana, we also do not have notable portals that give jobs, specific jobs to persons with disabilities. Yes, few international organizations try to say that yes, our recruitment is open to all, which is good, but many local firms or jobs do not do this. In the US, you can find websites like Ability Jobs, Upskills, and the likes, providing opportunities for persons with disability. And I believe we can also adopt this here so that we can have a space where you can just go there, and when there are vacancies, you know that you are assured as a person with disability to have an opportunity to apply as well. So yes, I would want to pause here and take your follow-up questions.
Great, great submission there. Now, hello, can you hear me? Right. I'd like to find out, since you've started talking about websites, WhatsApp, and all of that, are there any sites specifically for people living with disabilities in terms of job openings that you know of? Are there any?
No. In Ghana, no. Like I said, in Ghana we don't have, but in the US and the likes, in the advanced world, there are, and I mentioned Ability Jobs, Upskills, and the likes. There are a lot of them outside there. But in Ghana, we don't have specific website that you can go and find these jobs. What then exists among some international organizations is that they clearly state that these jobs are open, or they encourage persons with disability to apply, which is a positive start. And I believe that all employers here should also add this to their recruitment ads. And not only should it be there as an inscription, but they should live up to the bidding. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for Collins. On now to Joshua, and you've been pretty quiet for a while, fittingly so. As I prepared for these interactions, I looked globally at some of the impediments, and you would realize that impoverishment, sometimes a lack of education because of the disabilities in question, and so many other things impede people living with disabilities. But from where you sit, what often are the misconceptions, stereotypes that people living with disability have to grapple with? You can share personal examples.
Thank you very much. There are lots. There are lots. If I want to start from the meat,
go ahead. Can you know?
The common one. I'll come to the jobs, but then let me start from the common one that we've all heard about. That persons with albinism don't die. They don't die. They disappear or they vanish. It is very common. This is because we have people who believe that when you use persons with disability, I'm using the ordinary ways. There are people who believe that when you use persons with albinism for rituals, you get a lot of money. So we are like, they don't die. Then Joshua is a person with albinism. We'll be walking around Dansoman. Then we'll say, I am going to circle. We'll disappear. They will not find my body. They will look for me. They will not find me. Then they'll be like, oh, it is time for him to disappear. So he has disappeared. Meanwhile, it could be that somebody have used that person for rituals. And that's a serious myth. I can go on and on. But you see, one thing that Ghanaians, we don't take it serious. We take it lightly. It's worse. Worse. And worse are serious. One of the popular music will tell you, worse can make you and worse can break you. We'll be sitting here and we'll be like, can't you see that deaf and dumb gentleman? What do you mean by that? Does it mean if the person is deaf, the person cannot think? Does it mean if the person is deaf, the person cannot do things for himself? So we don't say deaf and dumb. We only say a person with hearing impaired. If you want to be specific, you say a person with deafness or person hard of hearing. Please, those words break hearts. Then, instead of you saying visually impairment, what is the popular name? Well, so when we come to visually impairment, we have two categories. Even we have more than two. We have the totally blind, we have the partially sighted, and then we have the low vision. So you have to know who you are talking to. And please, let's address persons with disability with their names. We are human beings. We were named. We had our naming ceremony. So please, let's address persons with disability with their names. Stop saying, can't you see that blind guy going? He insulted me. And when we give work, I once spoke to somebody. I wouldn't mention the institution, but when I was supposed to do my national service, I was posted to an institution. Not knowing 4 of my colleagues were there, we were chatting outside there. First one went in, he came, they've approved. Second one went in, he came, they've approved. I went in, I was denied, I came out. I said, let me look for more evidence. I waited for the 2 other friends to go in and come. They were all approved. I was like, what? What is happening? Then later on, I got information to say that it's because I cannot see. What can I do when I come to that institution? I was reposted into an institution differently to do my national service. And they love my services. Right after, we were about 32 doing national service. All of them went back home. They were all not persons with disability. I was the only person with disability there, and I was retained, given permanent employment. So, if we stop the stigma, not only to persons with disability, but to their personal assistants and their families, if we stop the stigma, and we also give them the work and trust in them, we'll have, as I said, twice or more of the targets we give them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm hoping as we listen to them, these are not words that enter through one ear and go out through the other, but that they actually pierce our hearts. Stereotyping is so commonplace, especially in our part of the world, on so many fronts. Sometimes it's the stereotype, the stigma, that affects people the most, not even what will happen in an institution, the stigma, and knowing that I am not welcome, like Collins mentioned. But having mentioned, Joshua, some of the words we should not use, do share with us, are there any other inclusive words, words that we can use to refer to people living with disability?
Okay, so this is, I am sure some of the things, they are unconsciously, I know, there are things we say unconsciously. So, for instance, if we want to say persons with disability, most of us goes like persons living with disability. And we are not living with it. Or are we living with it? We are persons with disability. We are proud of it. So some of them are unconscious. And I am sure when we try our best, we intense our way of doing it, it will come because it has been part of us. But then when we try our best, certainly we are going to go away from it. Again, when we want to say inclusive words, so I can't be specific here just because we have, according to the database of the National Council on Persons with Disability, we have 26 categories as it stands now. 26 categories of disabilities. And it is because disability is an evolving concept. We know as we move in day in and day out, there might be more or we must subtract. So as it stands, it's 26. So inclusive. So inclusive is our deliberate actions. When we are at an office, let's start doing this. I want to describe something to somebody. I should try to let the person understand the kind of picture I am painting, not necessarily using the visual and let me say, for instance, if I want to tell a visually impaired where a photocopier is, if we do this with our quote and unquote people who are not persons with disability, then that is where we can practice inclusive to its massive way. What I mean here is that, so I want to describe something to Collins. I say, Collins, when you enter the first room on your left, just behind the door, there's a photocopier machine. Collins knows exact place that he's going. Or when you go into the room, the third table on your left will take you to where the photocopier is. But then you don't say, when you go into the room, take left, move ahead, and then look at your right. You are not communicating. So for us to be more inclusive, let's start practicing it, consciously talking to people. I'll put it this way, as if they are persons with disability, because we are looking at tomorrow. And when we are looking at tomorrow, we should start practicing what will come future. I am not saying everybody in Ghana or everybody in the world should become a person with disability. But then when we should start making these things known to everyone, if I become a person with disability, I don't have to struggle because I am already used to the environment. The situation in which I find myself, for the people surrounding me, are welcoming already. But then, if we want to do it because we have persons with disability among us, then tomorrow, or when we are at places where there are no persons with disability, and tomorrow there should be a person with disability among us, we will find it very difficult to practice it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua. We have about 14 minutes more for the discussion, and we are going to make the time as promised. And thank you for the correction. I think once or twice today I've said people living with disability. Thanks for the correction. So people with disability. We all have to learn. I'm learning, even here, even sitting here, I'm learning. Thank you, Joshua, for that. Let me come to Vivian. For you, you have mentioned that working with Standard Chartered Bank, it's been very good, an experience.
Yes.
What has your experience been, not just maybe at previous places where you've worked or had interactions with, and in your community? What is it like?
You mean the challenges?
The challenges you face.
Okay. When I joined the bank initially, I started at the previous head office at High Street. Over there, the floor was very smooth and a bit slippery. So I fell a couple of times. And that was the number one challenge. The second one had to do with the washrooms.
Well, what, if I may, was done about the situation? What was done about that?
I think there were drops of water on the floor on all instances, and I tripped and fell. I didn't see the water, and I'm sure other people didn't see it because it wasn't so obvious. It was just droplets of water, and I stepped in it and I slipped. I think it happened like 3 times. Yeah, on 3 different occasions. So the second challenge had to do with the washrooms. The washrooms at that building are very small. So I struggled. At the time I was using caliper. And you know calipers are stiff. Yeah. So I struggled to enter, struggled to close the door before I ease myself. That was another challenge. And then the third one had to do with the chairs at that time. You know, for us, we can't just stand and sit. You exert pressure before you stand. Same applies to the sitting. And so I had a number of chairs breaking on my account. Okay, so somewhere in 2012, I heard the bank wanted to build a new head office. And I was amazed when they approached me. They sent me a mail. We are going to build a new head office, and we want you to tell us what you want to see in that new building. Tell us how you want us to build it. Yes, this made me feel special, you know. So I wrote from the bottom of my heart. I want to see a friendly floor. The washrooms should be spacious, and I want quality chairs. You know, I wrote it and I forgot about it. Then in 2018, when we moved into the new building, I was amazed. The floors, they are like this. You hardly sleep. In fact, since we've moved to the new head office, I've never fallen down. Yeah, I've never fallen down. And then the washrooms are very spacious, very, very spacious and friendly. And then the chairs are quality chairs, you know. So I feel very good. And I feel very special to think that they actually approached me, you know, to give my suggestions. I did, and they worked with it. So if you were in my shoes, how would you feel? You feel
very
good.
good, definitely. Yeah. Very good. I don't know whether you've not taken the wind out of my sail in terms of answering the next question, because I was going to ask how much of a support Standard Chartered had been to you in that respect. Yes. Is there anything else they've done that you would like to highlight? Yes.
They've supported me in so many ways. You have no idea. In fact, I live at Dansoman, and I have so many colleagues at Dansoman. Every now and then, somebody's taking me to work and somebody's bringing me back home.
Randomly?
Yeah. And when somebody is going on leave, I'll be on leave, so you take over. I have all the support I need. All the support.
I think a lot of your colleagues would be looking at you with green with envy by now and saying, what that our workplaces were like yours. I think Standard Chartered deserves a massive round of applause. And why I say that is sometimes institutionally they may have the measures in place, but individually the stereotyping and all of that happens from there. The mindset is still there. At least this is a place where there's that mindset, there's that awareness that she's one of us. She may be hobbled with some difficulties, but we can assist her to be ever more productive. And do you remember when I told you that she was the Employee of the Year? Employee of the Year. Let me come to Akosia now. For you, what initiatives as the FCDO are you currently working on to promote disability awareness?
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, I think my development director highlighted these, and just to reiterate that in FCDO or across the High Commission, all our programs, everything that we do, disability is mainstreamed. Everything, all our projects, our programs and everything. And it's across board and across everything that we do, across not just in Ghana, but across the world. But beyond that, we also have a specific program, a Leave No One Behind program, which again, my development director highlighted, which is, that program is it's a government of Ghana program, which we are supporting with, I think, £39 million over a period of 5 years. This program is also addressing specifically disability and mental health issues, not just with government, but across other institutions that are working in this area. And so internally, we are doing a lot, like externally and with governments and everything. Internally also, we have a disability network that the organization consults or works with to ensure that persons, staff that have disability, including even those who, caregivers, for example, are all getting the necessary support. There are governance systems in place that checks on us to ensure that the environment, everything we are doing, the PWDs amongst us have the same opportunities so that they can be their best. So initiatives
Right.
And the strategy, I mean, again, my director also mentioned our inclusion strategy that was launched in this February. We are also now working on an action plan that would deliver or that would implement the strategy, across board.
So you are at the implementation phase of it?
If you like. We are at the developing action plan.
Okay.
That will implement the strategy.
Okay.
Year on year.
What then are actions that companies can take in terms of raising awareness about disability employment?
I think companies can learn from Stanchart. When there was mentioned that Stanchart had been doing this annually for 10 years, I said, oh, then the publicity has not been enough. So I think they need to widen the net going forward, publicize it enough for organizations to learn from your example. Like I said before, I think that organizations need to deliberate. I keep using this word. I mean, they need to be deliberate about supporting this campaign and ensuring that, like I said, Agenda 2030 is achieved for all of us. Yeah. For the organizations that are privileged to be here, I'm saying that I would say that we shouldn't just do it just to tick the box. We need to give the opportunity to PWDs to add to the growth that we all, aspire to have in our society. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Akosua. Please, let's put our hands together for our panel members. And God has been gracious to us. At least we have worked within the time. We have exactly 4 minutes left, and I'm going to apportion them to all 4 of you. What are your concluding remarks? What for you would be the things that you want to stay with all of us as we wind down on this panel discussion? I'll start with you, Collins. You would have to use the microphone. Did I hear you say apply exchange rate?
Yes, I said apply inflation rate and exchange rate to my 1 minute.
Oh, all right.
Simply put, I would increase the 1 minute by, I think, 30 seconds or so. All right.
Right,
so,
go ahead.
So 3 things was I conclude from this panel discussion. And Standard Chartered Bank must be commended because they have been deliberate about this. And it's not only about a career fair, but they also do other things. I remember in 2018-19, there was the Disability Inclusion Awareness Session for all staff so that they are able to interface with clients with disability and handle them with care. So they do a lot of things in these areas. And this is what other organizations can adopt, trying to get awareness on some of these issues and how to handle them when they come to you. GFD, myself and my outfit, Azubi Africa, we are available to provide you with this service. Secondly, I would also want to say that, like Akos kept mentioning, by 2030, about 230 jobs will move digital. It is therefore important to position ourselves as persons with disabilities in the digital space to grab the opportunities to acquire some digital skills to be relevant in this time and era. It is in light of this that Azubi Africa, my outfit, has been approved by Cisco International to train some 30 persons with disability next year in cybersecurity. And the positive aspect is that this must come free, so we are still working on funding. We are yet to close on funding. The other aspect of it is about employment. These 30 people must get job at the end of the training. So the training will last for about 9 months, so somewhere September, October next year, the training will come to an end. And when it is done, these individuals must get a job or must land a job. And this is where all other employers must help us or must support us so that we collaborate, including Standard Chartered Bank, to recruit some of these trainees that will go through this training. You would agree with me that many jobs have gone digital of late, and there's a need to have a secure environment online. So we would require some commitment from employers so that we together do this training and also get them recruited. It could be an internship opportunity, it could be a contract timeline, it could be a permanent opportunity based on your availability and your skill set. We would be available to give you the needed support to ensure that you manage these individuals to get the best out of them. And finally, to my colleagues, persons with disabilities, it is important that we also upskill ourselves to meet the demand and the challenge that has been thrown onto us. As we sit here and talk about all these things, it doesn't mean it is 100% employers, take note. It is not 100% across board. Of course, there are the downside of it and there are the positive side of it. But what we are trying to say is that the positive side outweigh the negatives. This is what you must consider when you take decisions. And hence, my colleagues with persons with disability, we need to position ourselves to grab these opportunities and excel anytime we have this at our fingertips. Thank you, and thank you, the organizer of this program.
Thank you very much, Collins. You did indeed take stock of the inflationary rate and the exchange rate in your submission. We're grateful. Joshua.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the words of my boss, which I always borrow. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, which means that when we talk of disability issues, it has come a long way, and we believe we are not stopping here, but then we are continuing the journey. So as government, we have intensified our deliberate actions to make sure persons with disability are mainstream in everything, including some of the things Mr. Mawuto Ablo, the director of gender, said. I will also say that persons with disability should avail themselves. You don't light candles and put it under a table. Another saying that my father told me when he was alive, he said, the boy I sent now go, always present tense, which means that anybody who avails himself with the requisite skills and ready to serve always gets the necessary attention he or she deserves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those poignant words. Vivian?
My message to employers is simple. Do not assume that persons with disability cannot do the job. Give them the opportunity. If they can't do it, they will tell you themselves. So your job is to give them the chance. Now, my message to my colleagues living with disability, avail yourselves. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. If you have to go to school, do it. If you have to acquire a skill, do it. Just get ready, because you may never tell when the opportunity will pop up.
Thank you very much, Vivian. Let's have Akusia now.
Yes, I want to say that there's a UN report on disability development, I think in 2018. It highlights the work being done so far by countries. As employers, we need to do more. We need to balance the scale. I think that we need to, if we look at our employee numbers and we look at the percentage that are PWDs, we would appreciate the fact that we need to balance the scale. So let's do more, let's up our efforts and do more to balance the scale. To the PWDs who have the opportunity to be here, avail yourselves for the opportunities that are available. Do your best. Go in, go through the process if you have to. And once you're given the opportunities, work just as anybody else will work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, let's put our hands together for our panel members. Vivian Tete is Lending Onboarding Officer, Standard Chartered Bank Ghana PLC. She's also the Employee of the Year. Collins Losu is Inclusion Manager at Azubi Africa. Joshua Addy is National Council on with the National Council on Persons with Disabilities, and Akusia Oheneba Jambibi is Procurement and Business Support Manager, Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. That's the FCDO. We're going to take some questions from you. I'm going to keep them here so that if there are any reactions, they can also deliver some of those. I think the first one I'll deliver to the representative of the Minister for Gender and Social Protection, Mr. Mauto Ablo, right? Good. Two things came to mind when I came here. The first one had to do with a story I read recently. Just to re-echo what Beth said at the start of this session, Ghana is a party to the ratification of the UN Declaration on the Rights of the Disabled. We also have a Persons with Disability Act, Act 715 of 2016. Mr. Ablo mentioned that it was in the process of revision, if I recall. I also know, for example, that when the toll booths were taken away, a lot of our PWDs lost their work. Some of them interacted with my media entity and lamented the situation. It appears that has not changed, and a lot of them are still languishing. I know there's been some change to that directive. What can we expect? And I saw this bit that really got me disturbed just a month ago. Last month, the Ghana Blind Union appealed to our government to provide persons with visual impairment with white canes, like you see Collins carrying, the white cane. Now, according to the executive director of the union, Dr. Peter Obing Asamoah, he mentioned that only 30% of the estimated 230,000 of them had white canes. So let me break it down for you. I was doing the math here. 30% of 230,000 is 69,000, which means 161,000 of them do not have something as basic as white canes. Collins, can you show it once more? White canes. I don't know whether you have any reactions to that. I know I'm throwing a hot potato at you, but what do you think we can do in that regard? Toll booths, white canes. That's how I'll start the question time. Microphone.
Thank you.
Sorry for the ambush.
The ministry works with the disability community through the National Council on Persons with Disabilities. So whatever issues that's come up, the ministry organizes dialogue, intervention, and discussions with them, and then find amicable solutions to this issue. On the white cane issue, personally, this is new to me. I'm just hearing it for the first time. And I guess if the issue is brought to the attention of the ministry, we would have a discussion and see how best it can be addressed. You know, we work with other partners, including development partners, and see how best these issues can be addressed. The FCDO, for instance, with in the Leaving No One Behind program, have been working with the ministry together with the National Council on Persons with Disability. And as I mentioned, the commitments that were made for 2022 are things that we've jointly done. We supported, the ministry supported the NCPD to work with all the partners. Disability organization came up with these commitments. And these commitments have been documented, action plans have been developed, including all these things, inclusive education, etc. And the various ministries, department, agencies that have responsibility to implement have their clear roles spelled out. It is in their work plan. And we have encouraged and requested them to mention into their 2023 work plan and budget. So our expectation is that some of these issues will be addressed in the work plans of the various MMDAs in 2023. We're currently in the process of finalizing the various budgets and then for implementation. So I believe some of these issues will be addressed in the implementation of the intervention. But the toll booth issue, this really is actually not in the domain of the ministry. It's an issue of
fully
the
aware. That's
Ministry
why I
of
said.
Road and Transport. You know, it's Ministry of Road and Transport that deals with this. I cannot exactly say what is in the work plan this year for 2023 to see how best that issue can be addressed. So I will not be in a position to say anything categorically on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Ablo. that was a hot one I threw to him. We have just a few more minutes for interactivity. If you have any questions, submissions, now is the time. In some 5 minutes, owing to the passage of time. If you have any questions, any submissions, we have one. In fact, I would like to take all of you, at least know how many of you have questions so we can sew it up quickly. Are there any, so 2? Are there any others? 3? Did I see your hand up, sir? Yes, 4. Is that all? Going? 5. And now gone. So 5 will do. Let's start with you.
Okay. My name is Abdallah Mashoud, the Executive Director for Africa Center for Retirement Research. I think, what do they call it? The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals have demonstrated amply the importance of people with disability development, global economic development. And I would like to mention that if you look at the 17 SDGs, people with disability have been mentioned explicitly 11 times out of the 17. And that clearly demonstrates the importance the globe is placing on issues with regards to persons with disabilities. But that notwithstanding, it appears the world is still running without these people. And the SDGs has carved it around 4 thematic areas. Here we are talking about social and economic well-being of the people. We are talking about social inclusion. We are talking about sustainable and better lives for the people. And we are talking about total inclusion. If you look at all this, as I indicated, we are still running without these people, our brothers and sisters at the other side. Now, we are talking about career development, and we are talking about jobs. Definitely, we are running a scheme in Ghana, a pension scheme in Ghana, which is contributory. And you have to be employed before you can contribute into the scheme and even be covered by the Social Security scheme. So I would want to, at this point, commend the organizers of the program, particularly SCB, for putting together something like this. I think it is important we bring in the corporate world so that they can copy from the model of SCB. I'm sure when that is done, we are not only going to improve the economic well-being of people with disability, but we are going to improve their lives when they grow old and to the future. So congratulations, SCB.
Thank you for that submission. I see someone who had wanted to pose a question, but I think he has to attend to other matters. So we'll quickly do this. Please, you have less than a minute each. Let's in some 40 seconds. What's your submission or question?
Thank you very much. My name is Alex Tete. And first of all, I congratulate Standard Chartered and also Ghana Federation of Disability Organization for organizing this every year. My suggestion or question is, how do we monitor progress between one career fair and the other? If we're able to do that, we can then see that we're moving forward. So after this career fair, those who will be employed, what happens to those who will not be employed? If there's a mechanism or there's a system where we can continuously help them, so that before we get to the next career fair, 2023, we would know what we are actually about, and it will enhance our planning and program. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much. So deliverables, results, follow-ups. Next. There was a hand up here.
I would first of all like to congratulate the firms who have amalgamated towards this disability career fair. But first of all, I would like to also ask, aside employees taking decision on helping downsize this unemployment issue. Is there any anchor or is there any committee formed out of investors that could help people with disability that are very intelligent with business ideas, that are willing to establish these business ideas to kickstart? Is there any anchor that could come in to help people as such?
Right, and that's another important angle for some of them for some of our brothers and sisters who are PWDs who may want to do something in the business entity, start up something. What is available to them? I think there's a final one here because the other gentleman had to go out.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Angela Amma. I work with GIZ on behalf of the German government. First of all, I'd like to commend Standard Chartered for holding this disability career fair. I think in terms of bringing people with disability into employment, the next line of questioning will be making them inclusive in terms of financial access. GIZ is working on a project that is looking at financial access for persons with disability, and I think Standard Chartered is a really great role model for the financial service providers in this line. And I would just want to find out, aside the employment opportunities that you give to persons with disability, how are you making your products and services also welcoming for persons with disability? We did a study this year, beginning of this year, and one of the key things that we found out in the study is that there are quite a number of barriers, some of them structural, which you have talked about here, but in terms of even attitude now, when it comes to persons with disability going into a financial service space to be able to access products and services, it will be good to learn from you what you're doing in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for your submissions. However, I noticed that, is there any representative of, so we'll clap for GIZ because you have something in the pipeline, and we'll hope that you deliver because you've put it up here publicly. We hope we'll see something coming from the GIZ. Let's put our hands together for them. It's a way of guilting them into doing the right thing. Yeah. Is there any representative of Stanchart who might want to respond to some of the comments that have been passed? Questions have been posed. She just posed a question. Is there any? If you do, fine. If you don't want to hazard a response, that's also fine. I would like Stanchart to, or are you preparing your response? Right.
Okay, so I think that's a very interesting question, and thanks so much for it. So in our sustainability initiatives, there are 3 different areas. So one is the role we play in our community. So something like this today would fit that bill. But there's another important area which we call sustainable financing, which goes into the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we try to work with a lot of partners like yourselves to direct capital or financing to interesting projects, as you mentioned. Interesting because they still have to repay, right? So we're not giving the money away for free. But we'll try and collaborate with other financiers to be able to fund those projects at slightly lower costs and potentially longer tenors to meet your requirements. So that's on by sustainable financing. Then when we are working with clients as well, there are a number of areas that we also look at, to advise clients around sustainable financing. So clients who would employ people with disability, for instance, will get, some better points, or we'll look at them more favorably. So there are a number of areas, but as I said, this is evolving, and we will continue to improve upon our proposition as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Top up.
No, thank you. So, and brilliant question. Thank you for that. And to add to what my colleague has just said, so there are a couple of things. You talked about products and services. We are in the process of digitizing a lot of our products so that everyone can access it. So first of all, our branches are all friendly. So for people who actually want to physically go to the branch, like he said, we have trained the personnel at the branch, and access to the branch is also friendly. Now, beyond our products and services, when you go into what we do for the communities, like he said, we have a number of programs that are running, and also as an answer to the question earlier colleague asked. So we do have a Women in Technology program. It's an entrepreneurship program for startups, and it's open to everyone, startup entrepreneurs. So you could be PWD or not, but we encourage a lot of PWDs to apply. We also have a training program for youth called Youth Employability Skills Program. And we know that because the future of work is changing, we are actually helping people to understand what employers are looking for. So all the soft skills, being creative, being innovative. And last year we trained 18,000 people nationwide on this particular program. And this year we are training 7,000 of such, 7,000 youth, in 5% of whom are PWDs. Sometimes the barrier is that we don't get a lot of PWDs applying for these programs. And I think for us, what we are doing is actually reaching out to make sure that we get a lot more applications from PWDs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How many thousand did you mention again? 7,000, you said.
So this year is 7. Last year we did 18,000, and it's nationwide.
So that's some 350 PWDs in there. Let's put our hands together for Stan Charter. So as we wrap, we're concluding this session. I would have ended right at this point, but I noticed Collins and Joshua were rearing to go. I'll give you 20 seconds, I beg of you, 20 seconds, if you can manage it. This one, no inflation, no exchange rate. All right, Joshua.
Okay, so thank you. Collins has added his 20 seconds to mine. I normally like making it very short. So the question that came out that investment or yes, I will not talk about investment. Let me quickly go to the business area. So apart from persons with disability being employed into government institutions, I made mention of the almighty popular known common fund, which is giving business to persons with disability. We also have the Ghana Enterprise Agency, who advise persons with disability on businesses. Again, our representative of the minister from the Ministry of Gender made mention of the USTAT. Personally, I've gone through the registration, and they've had a portion whereby they ask whether you're a person with disability. They ask you the other things that you need, whether you need a training or you need a startup. So please, let's take opportunity and then explore all those opportunities so that it will not be like only government institutions that we want to venture into. But then to end it, let me say that this year I got to know persons with disability with fear venturing into the, what do you call it, the private sector. But then the private sector is equally friendly to us, just as the government center. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And I'll just end the session. We tend to forget. I'll re-echo. There is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. And your present circumstances don't determine where you can go. They merely determine where you can start. Thank you so much, Vivian. Thank you, Collins. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Akosua, for joining the conversation. For those watching live on air, we'll take a breather and return with more. Jerry, over to you.